Welcome to this explosive video that will reveal the hidden side of sugar. This white substance is hiding everywhere and could very well be your worst enemy without you even knowing it. Stay until the end to find out how this product, which is everywhere in our modern diet, has been turned into a silent weapon by the giants of the food industry. The scandal we're about to reveal today involves one of the biggest names in the global food industry and its controversial practices that affect the most vulnerable among us. What you're about to learn could radically change the way you consume and think about your health. If this video gives you useful information, don't hesitate to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our investigations. Your support is essential for us to keep uncovering these truths that some would rather keep hidden. Today, sugar is considered by many experts to be public enemy number one when it comes to our health. It's a substance whose excessive consumption is linked to a multitude of modern diseases that shorten our life expectancy and worsen our quality of life. The history of sugar is fascinating and goes back thousands of years, but it's the industrialization and massive commercialization of sugar over the past 2 centuries that have turned this once rare and precious commodity into an everyday product, one that's practically everywhere. Sugarcane was cultivated in Papua New Guinea more than 8,000 years ago, but the sugar we know today, refined and crystallized, only appeared in the 5th century in India. For centuries, sugar remained a luxury product, accessible only to the wealthiest, which explains why health problems related to excessive consumption were virtually non-existent. The Industrial Revolution changed everything, making it possible to produce sugar on a massive scale at low cost, and turning what was once an occasional luxury into a daily part of our diet. Today, the average French person consumes about 35 kilograms of sugar per year, which is nearly 100 grams per day, a figure far above the World Health Organization's recommendation to limit intake to 25 grams per day. What makes sugar particularly dangerous is its ability to create a real addiction, similar to what is seen with certain drugs like cocaine, according to several recent scientific studies. When we consume sugar, our brain releases dopamine, the pleasure neurotransmitter, creating a feeling of well-being that drives us to consume even more. This biochemical reaction explains why so many people have trouble cutting back on their sugar intake, despite their willpower and awareness of the health risks. The scandal we mentioned at the beginning involves the food giant Nestlé, which was recently accused of adding sugar to infant milk sold in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. This practice is all the more shocking because it goes against the explicit recommendations of the World Health Organization, which is concerned about the disastrous consequences of sugar addiction from a very young age. By exposing infants to sweet flavors from their very first months, Nestlé is helping to create a generation of children who may become dependent on sugar, with all the consequences that implies for their future health. Scientific studies show that taste preferences develop very early in life, and that early exposure to sugar can condition children to seek out sweet foods throughout their lives. This early conditioning is especially insidious, because it takes hold at an age when the child has no control over their diet, and when parents trust companies that claim to act in the best interest of their baby's health. But why would a large company like Nestlé take the risk of adding sugar to products intended for infants, despite the contrary recommendations of public health experts? The answer is simple and sadly predictable: money. Sugar is a cheap ingredient that improves the taste of products and creates dependency among consumers, thus ensuring steady sales and brand loyalty. This cynical business strategy sacrifices the health of the most vulnerable on the altar of profit, a practice that is unfortunately all too common in the global food industry. The impact of sugar on our health is devastating, and scientific evidence continues to pile up year after year. Excessive sugar consumption is directly linked to the obesity epidemic, which now affects more than 700 million people worldwide, including 150 million children, according to the latest estimates from the World Health Organization. Type 2 diabetes, which was once rare and mainly seen in adults, now affects millions of children and teenagers. a direct consequence of our unchecked sugar consumption. Cardiovascular diseases, the leading cause of death worldwide, are also promoted by a diet high in sugar, which raises blood triglyceride levels and contributes to high blood pressure. Sugar is also involved in the development of many cancers, especially those of the pancreas, liver, and colon, organs that are directly exposed to the harmful metabolic effects of sugar. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or fatty liver disease, which was once almost exclusively linked to excessive alcohol consumption, now affects millions of people who consume too much sugar even though they don't drink. Dental problems, premature skin aging, mood disorders, and even certain forms of dementia have been linked to excessive sugar consumption in various scientific studies. Sugar addiction is especially insidious because it develops gradually and often without people realizing it. Sugar is found in many foods where you wouldn't expect it. Store-bought tomato sauces, ready-made meals, sandwich breads, deli meats, so-called low-fat yogurts, breakfast cereals, and even some savory foods contain surprising amounts of added sugar. This omnipresence makes the fight against excessive consumption especially difficult, because even the most careful consumers can get caught off guard by misleading labels or ingredients hidden under unfamiliar names. In fact, the food industry uses more than 56 different names to refer to sugar in ingredient lists, a deliberate strategy to hide its presence from health-conscious consumers. Glucose syrup, dextrose, maltodextrin, high-fructose corn syrup, whole cane sugar, evaporated cane juice, molasses, and agave syrup are just some of the names used to refer to what is fundamentally still sugar, with all its harmful effects on our bodies. This practice of hiding sugar is especially common in products marketed as healthy or aimed at children. It's a bitter irony when you consider the effects of sugar on the development and health of young people. The sugar lobby, powerful and well-organized, has long worked to downplay the dangers of this product and delay regulations that could impact its profits. In the 1960s and 1970s, recently released internal documents show that the American sugar industry funded research aimed at diverting attention from the harmful effects of sugar to saturated fats. This manipulation of science influenced nutritional guidelines for decades, leading millions of people to choose low-fat products that were often loaded with sugar to make up for the taste. More recently, the sugar industry has spent millions of euros on lobbying to oppose taxes on sugary drinks and clear nutritional labeling that could alert consumers to the sugar content in products. In France, the Nutri-Score faced intense pressure from industry groups before it was adopted, and the fact that it is not mandatory reflects the power these lobbies have over public health policy decisions. In light of these troubling revelations, what can we do as consumers to protect ourselves and our children from this addiction that is programmed from a very young age? The first step is to become aware of the problem and to carefully read the labels on the products we buy, learning to recognize sugar in all its forms and names. Choosing unprocessed foods, cooking for yourself as much as possible, and gradually reducing your consumption of sugary products are effective strategies to break free from sugar addiction. For parents, it is crucial to protect children from a very young age by avoiding sweetened infant formulas and introducing a varied diet without added sugar. Since tastes are formed in the first months of life, offering babies a variety of natural flavors will allow them to develop a balanced palate, not skewed by the artificial appeal of sugar. On a collective level, supporting organizations that advocate for healthier eating and putting pressure on policymakers to strengthen regulations on food labeling and composition can help change industry practices. Examples from countries like Chile or Mexico, which have adopted drastic measures against overly sugary products, show that it is possible to reduce excessive sugar consumption through proactive public policies. The Nestlé scandal we mentioned is just the tip of the iceberg of a global food system dominated by a handful of multinationals that too often prioritize short-term profit over public health. As informed consumers, we have the power to make a difference by changing our purchasing habits and demanding greater transparency and accountability from the companies that produce our food. The fight against sugar addiction is a long-term battle that requires both individual and collective awareness, but the benefits for our health and that of future generations are well worth the effort. A diet with less sugar means a lower risk of chronic diseases, more daily energy, more stable weight, and better mental health, advantages that should motivate us to resist the temptations of the sugar industry. The path to healthier eating isn't easy, especially in an environment where sugar is everywhere and advertising constantly bombards us with messages, urging us to consume more and more processed products. However, every small step counts, and simply becoming more aware of what we consume is already a victory in this fight for our health. Natural alternatives exist to satisfy our sweet tooth without the harmful effects of refined sugar. Fresh fruits, rich in fiber and nutrients, can satisfy our craving for sweetness while actually benefiting our bodies. Certain spices like cinnamon or vanilla can also enhance the flavor of our dishes without adding sugar, a trick that has been used for centuries in many culinary cultures. Teaching about taste and nutrition from a young age is essential to create a generation that is less dependent on sugar and more aware of the importance of a balanced diet. Schools have a crucial role to play in this area by offering healthy meals and including nutrition education in the curriculum. Public policies can also help reduce sugar consumption by taxing overly sugary products, regulating advertising aimed at children, and supporting research on sugar alternatives and ways to combat food addiction. Transparency in nutritional labeling is another major issue, as it allows consumers to make informed choices and puts pressure on manufacturers to reformulate their products. The Nutri-Score, despite its limitations, has already prompted several major brands to revise the composition of their products to avoid unfavorable ratings. This proves that informing consumers can be a powerful driver of change. The World Health Organization continues to warn about the dangers of sugar and recommends fiscal and regulatory policies to reduce its consumption, recommendations that are all too often ignored by governments under pressure from lobbyists. The fight against sugar's grip on our diet is both personal and political, individual and collective, and each of us can contribute to it in our own way. By sharing this video and the information it contains, you are already helping to raise the awareness needed to change mindsets and practices. There is still a long way to go, but attitudes are changing, and more consumers are turning to a more natural and less processed diet. An encouraging sign for the future. Food industry giants like Nestlé are starting to feel the pressure from consumers and advocacy groups, which is pushing them to change their practices. The media coverage of scandals like the one involving sugary infant formula is helping to raise awareness and shed light on practices that have long remained hidden. Every purchase is a vote for the kind of food industry we want to support. And every time we refuse an overly sugary product, it's a step toward a system that better respects our health. Cutting down on our sugar consumption is a daily challenge that requires vigilance and perseverance, but the benefits for our physical and mental health are well worth it. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If you found the information shared helpful, feel free to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to stay updated on our upcoming posts. Don't forget that all the scientific sources mentioned in this video are available in the description below, so you can explore the topic further if you wish. Together, we can help create a world where food once again becomes a source of genuine health and pleasure, free from the addictive grip of industrial sugar. Thank you for your attention, and see you very soon for a new video.